Okay, let's start with a slip knot. So all I do is I go like this and then pull it through. Grab both your tails and pull it tight. So that'll be the end. And then it just slips on. You don't want it to be too tight. You want to be able to have it loose, slide up and down. We're not using this. This is just your tail. This is your working yarn. We're going to make a chain. So for right-handed people, you always want to come around your hook. Left-handed people, again, you're going to come around your hook. I'm right-handed, so you come around your hook. What you want to do is you want this to come up over this. So you're going to go tuck that underneath your hook and pull this up and over. That is your first chain stitch. So you come around the back, up and over. If you came around the front, when you come up and over, most times it's just going to slip off. It's not going to work. It's more difficult. So come around the back and up and over. I like to hang on to this just because it's easier for me, I guess. You'll find a way to hold your hook in your yarn that's comfortable for a long time. This is how I did it, but it turns out very loose. What you don't want to do is get it so tight that you can't get your hook over. So if you get it really, really, really tight, it's difficult. You shouldn't have to pull through like that. So you can see here, let me just do a couple more. That chain stitch that I did really tight is very small, and it's going to be very difficult to work into. So you want to keep this rather loose. So I'm going to undo that stitch so I don't have to work with that. So you come around the back and then through. Around the back, up and over. Around the back, up and over. Around the back, up and over. Again, you can hold this here. And you can just go like this, if that's easier for you, which is totally fine. However you're comfortable doing this, the main thing that you want to do is keep your tension rather consistent. It's okay if this twists and curls. We'll deal with that later. So around the back, up and over. So we want to do 25 stitches. And each stitch, this counts as one stitch. Around, up and over. That's one stitch. Now when you look at your chain, if you untwist it and hold it flat, you can see all of these loops. And the best way to count your stitch is just count the loops along the top here. So I can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I have 14 stitches. We need 26, sorry, not 25. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, now here is my funky looking chain. Yours probably looks something like this if you did it that way. And you're just gonna hold it, stretch it out. You want this to be loose, that's okay, because this will actually, crochet stretches a lot. So whatever your chain is, your chain will only stretch so far. So you want to try and keep this rather loose. It's all going to be worked into, so you're not going to see this for the most part. So I'm just going to double check and count all my stitches again, make sure I have 26. What is on your hook? This is not a stitch, so never count this. This is the first stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, perfect. So let's move on to the single crochet. Now we're going to be moving up a row. And when you do that, if I work right into this first one, it's just going to scrunch it all right down. So what you want to do is you want to skip the first stitch. So we're going to skip that guy and we're going to go straight into this one. So in the pattern, it says to work into the second stitch from your hook. Well, this is your hook. This is your first stitch. This is your second stitch. So we're just going to go into that top loop there. You're going to yarn over. This is what it means when it says to yarn over. So you're going to put that over there and you're going to pull this through just that loop. So now you have 2 loops on your hook and you're going to yarn over one more time. You're going to pull it through both loops. So now this is what it looks like. And this can get confusing, but here is the loop that you just worked into. And now we're going to go to the next loop. It's easier to tell where to go if you hold your chain flat and you only work into the top loops. When you get more used to it, I guess, you can work into multiple loops as long as you keep all of it, but that's irrelevant and we're not going to learn that today. So work into the next stitch. So you go into that top loop, you yarn over, and you're going to pull it just through that first one. And now you're going to yarn over again and pull it through both loops. So now we have these 2 stitches. You can always tell which one you've left off on, because if you've done your chain loose enough, you have a big loop here, a hole. That will disappear. You won't see that. So you always want to go into the next loop that's free. So you go through, yarn over, through that first loop, yarn over, and through both. So loop, through the loop, pull it through, yarn over, through both. So you go under, loop, through, loop, through both. Into the next stitch, under, over, through, over, through. And you can see we're going into this next stitch here, through, over, and then through both. This is called a single crochet, and you can see how this is sort of working out. The loops are disappearing down here. It looks nice. At the top, it kind of looks like you've got a bunch of these nice pretty V's. If this starts to curl, that's okay. You want to keep this consistently, your tension consistent, because you don't want it to get really, really tight and then really, really loose. And I'll show you why. So we'll finish off this chain. When you get to the end, we'll show you how to count the stitches. So into the stitch, yarn over, through, yarn over, through both. Into the next chain, yarn over, through, yarn over, through both. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, through both. So I'll keep going here, through, yarn over, through both. Into the stitch, yarn over, through both. With knitting, you keep everything on both needles, so all of your work is on the needle, but with crochet, only where you're working is attached. The rest just is there. So into the next stitch, yarn over, through both. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through both. Into the next stitch, yarn over, through, yarn over, and through both. We're going into this next stitch. It's okay if this part looks a little bit wonky. The more rows we add, the more it'll come together. So we have, it gets a little confusing at the end here. And it looks like there's a lot more stitches left, but there's only 2. So this is your slip knot. We have this loop and this loop. So we're just going to go through the tops, through, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, through both. And then the last one is this loop right here. So we're going to go in through the top, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over once more, and pull it through both stitches. Okay, and now this is what we have. So it looks a little funny here, but that's okay. It will go flat. So how do you count your stitches? At the top, you have all of these little V's. And this is how you can tell how your stitches are looking. Some of them, if they're really tight, then the yarn has been too tight, but you'll work through it. One big tip, don't be afraid to take it apart. You're probably going to have to take it apart a few times, and that's fine. I've taken apart whole blankets before. So how do we count the stitches? Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. You can also count all of these if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Perfect. Okay. So now in the pattern, it says to chain 1 and turn. So again, from where we did the very beginning, this row here, we're just going to chain 1. So yarn over and pull it through. And what it means by turn, it means just to flip your work over so that you can start working across this way. I know in knitting you work back and forth. It's a little bit difficult on this one. So I wouldn't be able to go back this way because I'm not left-handed. So chain one and turn your work over. Okay. So we're going to do a single crochet again. And it says to work into the first stitch. Now this is going to be a little bit twisted because you've turned your work around. But you can see here, this is your first stitch. You have your chain, and now we have our first stitch, and you're looking for that V. It kind of forms a little V there. So you want to take your hook and put it through both top strands. And you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to yarn over, pull it through both, yarn over, and pull it through. Just like that. And then into your next stitch here, you're just going to work into each V all the way down. And I'll show you what to do when you get to the end. Sorry, the camera keeps going blurry. Oh, I just dropped that ball of yarn on the floor. Okay, so we're kind of at the end here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left. Now the last stitch is usually a little bit tricky because it looks like it rounds down this corner, but that is still a stitch that we're going to be working into. Okay, so through both, yarn over, pull it through, and through both. So under, through the V, yarn over, bring it up, yarn over, through both. Okay, and now for the very last one, you may have to turn it a little bit. You want to go through the V, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, and up like that. The same thing, we're going to chain one and turn. There we are. See how that loop is getting a little bit flatter now? It's more of a curve. Okay, so I'm going to pause it. I'm going to do 2 more rows, and we'll come back when we move on to the new stitch. Okay, so I have 4 rows of single crochet done. Now we're ready to move on to the half double crochet. Okay, so we're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn. Okay, so for a half double crochet, it's an extra step. So we're still going to go into that very first stitch, but before we put our loop in, we're going to yarn over first. So you have 2 loops on when you begin your stitch. And now we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to go through both, yarn over, pull it through. Now you have 3 loops. You're going to yarn over once more. You're going to pull it through all 3. And that is a half double crochet stitch. So we're going to yarn over into the next stitch, pull through. You have 3 loops, yarn over once more, and you have another stitch. So this stitch is a little bit thicker, it's a little bit chunkier. I like this stitch on a cozy because if your mug is really hot or your cup is really hot, it's a little bit thicker. And it looks pretty. So yarn over, always around the back of the hook, through, pull it under. You have 3 loops, yarn over once more and pull it through all 3. So you start with 2, go under, get your 3rd loop, yarn over, you now have 4, but you're going to pull that one through all 3. So you can do this all the way across. You'll still have 25 stitches. If you have less stitches, you're just going to have to undo until it was probably easier to undo all the way back to the beginning and just redo that row. That's okay. Practice makes perfect. So yarn over, go under. Now you have 3 stitches or 3 loops. Pull it through. So it's not very different. It looks a little bit different. This stitch is so versatile. You can make some pretty things with this stitch. So yarn over, go into your next stitch. Again, you're going through both. You're going to yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, through all 3. Yarn over. We already worked into that one. You can see it's been pulled up. We're going to go into this next stitch, through both, pull it through, yarn over, and through all 3. Yarn over, under, pull it through, yarn over, through all 3. Yarn over into the next stitch. yarn over, through all three. Okay, and then again, here is your very last stitch. Into there, yarn over, and through. And there is the first row of the half double crochet. So you want to go back, count your stitches. It is okay if this is curling and twisting and curling up on you. It means it's a little bit tight, but that's fine. Like I said, crochet stretches out a lot. Again, this is machine washable, so it's going to loosen after it goes through the wash because let's be real, it's coffee cup cozy. It's probably going to get some coffee on it. So it's the same at the top. So you can go and count the V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh, look, there's a part of me in this. I have crocheted one of my hairs. Okay, so we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now this is where I'm going to throw a hitch at you. The half double crochet. Remember how we yarned over before we went. So what that does is it creates actually a neat loop at the back. And if you flip it over, that loop is not there at the top, at the front. It's just on the back. So when you're working with a half double crochet, we have these loops. And we'll go back to the abbreviations. We have the definition of the back loop only and the front loop only. So the back loop is always the loop that's behind. And the front loop is always the loop that's closest to you. With the half double crochet, we have what's called a third loop. And that's back here. We're not working into this at all. But if you come across a pattern, and there's a lot of patterns that are on the easy or beginner spectrum that tell you to work into the third loop. That is this loop here. We are not touching these. They look really pretty when it's all done. We are still only working into the top of your work. So you would literally have to roll your work forward and work into that loop. We're not doing that. So again, this is your first stitch. We're going to be working into just the top. We are not touching the third loop. I just wanted to let you know so that when you go home and this is done, if you wanted to make something that had instructions to work into the third loop, that is what they're talking about. This right here. Now, completely ignore what I just told you because we're not working into it. We're just going to go back to the top. It's hard on the first stitch because when you do your chain 1 and turn, your work wants to turn. And this almost looks like the top of your work, but it isn't. Okay. So you're going to go into this first stitch. Oops. Yarn over into your stitch. Yarn over into the next stitch, pull it through, yarn over through all 3. Yarn over through all 3. Okay, I'm going to zip through this now. I'm going to do, see the pattern here. This is 5, 6, 7. I'm going to do this row and one more, and then we'll be on to the next. Okay, into the last stitch. So I have the first 4 rows are single crochet, and then I did 3 rows of the half double crochet. So row 5, 6, 7. And now we are back to a single crochet. You can choose to either do another row of the half double crochet, or you can do another single crochet. It's completely up to you. Yeah, so we're going to flip it over. We're going to go back to the single crochet. So you don't have to yarn over. This gets complicated because it's habitual now at this point that you want to do that. So we're going to go ahead into the first stitch. Oh, it's dry in here. I should have brought a glass of water to do this. So in, yarn over, pull it through, and back to the single crochet. If you're ever not sure if you've worked into a stitch already, just double check. So you can do that by pulling on what you're working on, and it'll usually pull up the loop that you're in, unless it's really tangled into a bunch. And then you'll be able to see that this is clearly your next stitch. So you're going to go through, pull it up, so through, yarn over, oh, my yarn is tangled.